Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, all of our guests. And I want to make one real quick announcement, and then we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give Andy the floor. We've got some paving bids, and they're present here tonight, and we're going to take that on the first agenda. But my first comment is this, that at the end of this meeting, when everything's done, there will be time, efficient time, for any public comments to be made out here. And I would ask that you would stand and give your name, and I'll give you a few minutes to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. But that'll be the end of the meeting, okay? With that, let's, I don't know, should we do the minutes first, or?
No, we gotta do the bid opening.
All right, well, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Andy to discuss the grants.
All right, we're gonna have our bid opening for our 2019 paving. Our first bidder is Grady Brothers. Are included.
There's two copies there, so it might be.
Is it okay?
Yeah. It might be kind of throwing you off.
Yeah, it's a little bit there. All right, their total lump sum bid is $224,790. Our second bidder is Baumgartner Paving. Statement. have to total this because they don't have a total price. One, their lump sum bid is $265,314.70. Our final bid is from Ace Paving. Documents are complete, and their total lump sum bid is $229,608. So my advice to you guys would be that we take this under review so we can check everything and then award our final bidder.
Can I hear a motion to table this issue and have the time to?
Well, here's the thing, I don't want to table it. I want you guys to allow me to review this, and pending that review, make the decision to award it, because we have to get a signed contract to get it in the state to complete our grant. So
Take it under advisement, you have
Yes.
to award it at a public meeting. I'd like to take a look at those two, make sure all the documents are there.
Right.
But that'd be the motion, to take it under advisement
Okay.
and to determine, to give enough time for council and Andy to review, to make sure everybody's responsive, and then to award it to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder at the next meeting.
And Andy, what was the name of that first bid? I didn't catch that.
Grady Brothers, it's for $224,790.
Okay. So we'll move on.
No, no motion. Make a motion, we take these bids under advisement for review, to determine the lowest, most responsive bidder.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So we'll take it under advisement then. Give legal counsel time to look at documents as well. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I guess now we'll go to approval of last meeting. Should have the documents there.
The only thing I saw in here the other day when I looked through this was the Howards also had concerns about our website. So, I looked at that in there. Other than that, I thought everything looked pretty good.
Any further discussion concerning minutes of last meeting? I entertain a motion to accept the meetings.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Here a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll do our reports. Andy, do you feel like doing your report tonight, or, I know Andy's been sick.
No, I'll read it.
Okay.
It's a short one because I have been off. Water plant has treated 663,930 gallons since March 12th. Our average daily usage for the last 2 weeks has been 47,427. Filters were backwashed on the March 21st and 26th. The water meters have been read for the month of March. I earned 20 continuing education units at the Alliance of Indiana Rural Water Spring Conference. The new water main on Hopkins Drive has passed the pressure test, and I will be taking the back T test this week so we can put that into service. Wastewater have been performing daily checks at the lift station and the sewer plant. The sewer plant is open and we are currently discharging. The weekly sewer samples are complete, and the March wastewater report is complete and has been submitted. And then I'm going to be, as people ask, I'm going to be getting prices on potholes probably after whoever we award this to from them, since they're going to be here. Then under building, issued 3 building permits, had 1 zoning inquiry and 2 building permit inquiries. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Andy. Edie Kesey's not here.
I took Jerry off, but Jerry,
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
I
see
told,
Jerry's
I
back.
called
I see
Jennifer this
Jerry
morning,
back.
told her I wasn't gonna be here, so that, I apologize for showing up, no.
Well, we'll just move on to Jerry List,
Okay.
our chief.
Well, I only have 3 items I wanna bring up tonight, and, over the week, this last weekend, a couple of us, installed the mobile data terminal in the engine down here at the fire department. We finally got the remaining parts we needed to make that installation. And this Thursday, I've got Scott Ligler coming from the Hamilton County to finalize, set everything up. So everything came from the county on that. The only thing that the expense of that's coming out of my budget is the MiFi device that connects it to the Wi-Fi when it's away from the station. So I spoke with Andy last week. I'm putting together a new hydrant map for the town. He had, talking with Andy, he still had an old hydrant map, so I told him once I got that done, I would share that with him. So I'm working on that. And then the last week when we had the statewide tornado alert, our siren didn't sound, and Executive Director Booker's here tonight, and I'm sure he'll update us on that. Andy did go, I believe, manually test it, and everything worked on our end. You know, and I know it's a lot of money, but we need to start thinking as a town replacing that and getting a proper siren for the town. And it's expensive. It's about $25,000. But there's got to be somewhere. There's got to be money out there, grant money that would help us with that, I would think. So, and maybe Director Booker can maybe shed some light on that after a bit when he talks to you. So that's all I had, unless you have some questions for me.
Any questions for Jerry? Mr. Brooker,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. I appreciate your time and having me come up and talk to you. My name's Shane Booker. I'm the Executive Director of Emergency Management, and it's nice to see Pam and Jody. They've been to a few of our different things that we've had, and it's really nice to have inclusion from the town. And we want to make sure that that we try and do everything that we can, that you don't feel forgotten up here for sure. Just a little bit about me. I'm from Noblesville originally, and my grandparents lived out west of Arcadia. So I'm not a stranger to Hamilton County. So I know where Atlanta's at. I've been here a lot for the Earth Festival, and it's really an honor for me to be the emergency manager. I've been there for just over a year in this position. We've had a lot of turnover in this job, and people have used this as a stepping stone to either go to Chicago or go to the state. I worked at the state as a state employee as a response director for a number of years. Unfortunately, I did have a partial lobotomy as a state employee. I didn't know if you knew that was a requirement or not, but so I'm not going anywhere. I'm either going to retire, die, or get fired in this job, and I hope it's not the second one. So I hope to see you frequently. Last week when we did the siren test, you were not the only municipality where the siren did not sound. What we found today with Federal on the phone and doing a lot of digging is that last November when we stopped doing the weekly siren test, one of the things that Federal Signal did is they connected us to the cloud. And when they did that, that made some problems occur. And then we also found that in January, Federal updated Carmel's system, but did not update Hamilton County's system. And Hamilton County is the primary system to set off the sirens, and then Carmel and Noblesville serve as backups. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to implement an MOU that dictates how we will update the siren systems. And we're also going to implement a standard operating procedure that says this is how we're going to ensure that if we do have problems, that it doesn't take us a week to finally get a hold of the right person at Federal Signal. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't have these things in place before. I think part of that's just because the amount of turnover that's been in this position, but I can guarantee you that what we are doing is tomorrow we are reprogramming the entire system, including your sirens. So we can push that directly from Noblesville so that it gets updated up here. And then we're going to do some electronic testing, and then what we plan to do on Thursday is what we call a quiet test. And that's where the siren will just sound, not fully, but it will make a sound for 2 seconds, and then that will get us the confirmation that we need. Your siren is not one that we get feedback from. Most of the other sirens, it tells us whether or not it sounded. most of the sirens in the entire county told us on Tuesday that they had sounded when they in fact did not. And then we also had the same problem on Friday with the weekly test. And again, that's because of some of those programming issues, and then also that interface that we actually turned off the cloud-based portion of it today and just said we're not doing that. We locked Federal Signal themselves out of the system so that they can't go through and make updates and changes to systems. And then once we have that MOU in place in the SOP, that will help ensure that everybody's on the same page. We're all going to agree that we're going to do it the same way, and that we're all going to update the 3 systems at the same time, so that that doesn't leave things out of sync like what happened with what we discovered with this. So that's a little bit of explanation on the siren system, and entertain any questions you may have.
Shane, you mentioned when I spoke with you, I think it may have been last week, you mentioned there's 2 types of sirens. You said Carmel actually installed a different type in their downtown area. Would you share that with the council?
Sure.
The two types?
So the siren that you may see that's typical that a lot of municipalities are putting in, which is the one that has kind of the cone and it rotates, that siren in itself is about $25,000. I mentioned that to some folks saying that, that's really too expensive for places like the town of Atlanta. And what Carmel shared with me is in their downtown area, they put one in, it looks almost like a ring of trumpets. And so it doesn't rotate, it's just there, and that siren system is about $15,000. So that's a lot cheaper, and one of the things that we're also waiting for right now is the state has not released the notice for grant opportunities. And one of the things that we have on our list is that earmarked $25,000, because that one gives you a 2-mile radius and coverage. I'm not sure what the trumpet siren system or that type of siren, what that coverage is, but it's not as great as the one that rotates. So I'm hopeful that we'll keep an eye out on the grant side for us, that if we do see any opportunities, that we could then potentially apply for that. And then there's other things that we can use for in-kind matching, like volunteer hours and those sorts of things, that we could apply towards that match, that we're, in a best case scenario, wouldn't cost the town anything but really the pole and getting the electricity there. So those are things that we're going to keep an eye out for and make sure that we're keeping in touch. We've got a great relationship with Jerry and really appreciate him sharing like a lot of the concerns that you guys have, and making sure that we've got that open communication to keep everyone in the loop, and making sure that if there are other things that are needed, that we can also look to that. I think the light tower, which is really a generator with lights on it, making sure that you have that up here, that helps us so that we're distributing our resources. They're not all kept in one place. Plus it makes it available for the town. Everything from a water main break in the middle of the night to even just simply having the generator available if you need to keep a furnace going in this building. So there's a lot of uses there, and we're glad that we can enter into that partnership. I do want to thank your attorney for taking the time to review that. We sent, I won't mention the other municipality, but we sent that to another municipality, and they just immediately signed it. And we then received yours back, and once we made the changes, then we sent the updated version to that other municipality and said, thanks to the town of Atlanta, we were notified that those codes were not correct. So thank you very much for pointing that out. But I do, I think most of you've got my contact information, but I'm more than happy to leave you with business cards. One of the other things that we're trying to do is making sure that we're communicating more with you. I know that, I'm not sure, Jody, do you get the alerts from us yet?
Yes, I do. I also get the alerts from FEMA too.
Okay, well, great. So that's one of the things that we've started doing is making sure that municipalities are in our alerting system, so that you're receiving the exact same information that's going to the commissioners and to the county council at the exact same time. So if you're not on that system, I'd be more than happy to add you. It is just for public safety and for municipalities, but we're happy to do that, to making sure that you're receiving the same information. I think you've,
I've got 'em.
both have them.
Sir.
I'm sorry. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, we just appreciate you coming up and talking with the council and introducing yourself. By working with the county, our office works closely with Shane's department, and I will tell you that in the last year, he's been doing some amazing things for at his level. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Booker, the town of Atlanta certainly appreciates your support, and we just thank you very much, and look forward to working with you.
Well, let me know if there's certainly anything we can do, and certainly glad we can help.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Jennifer, you have anything?
The only thing I was gonna say was I am going to be talking to an individual to, see about them coming in and getting some help, so I'll put on my radar.
Can we back up just a minute? Jerry,
Yes.
you have a roster that we could have?
Yes, I do.
All right, I
I do.
appreciate that.
I don't have it with me,
No,
but
that's
I will.
fine.
I will
Just
get
whenever
you
can
that.
get it to me, I'd
Okay.
appreciate knowing who's on our.
Okay, I will do that.
Thanks.
Better write that down, or I'll forget.
Okay, let's move on to old business. We have Steve Rock with us here tonight. He's gonna talk about our letters of engagement, billing process, or what's on your mind, Steve?
Talk about the first thing I'd like to talk about is my engagement letters, and actually there are two. The first engagement letter I gave you was for what's called municipal advisory services on your sewage project, and I'd like to ask you to sign that. I think your attorneys have reviewed that. We didn't see any major problems with it, okay? Some minor ones.
Nothing too crazy.
We're gonna ignore it. I have 3 copies here. I'd like to ask you to sign all 3. Keep one, give one to your attorney so he can review that again, and I'll take one with me if you'd like to. The other engagement letter is, Andy was telling me and Jennifer was telling me that they thought that I was going to work on the waterworks for a waterworks rate study also. And that was not included in the first engagement letter. This is an additional engagement letter that your attorneys have reviewed also, has a maximum cost of $4,000 on it. So it's really out on an hourly basis and would not exceed that, just so you know what that one is. I can't give you a maximum on the sewage side because you're getting into financing on the project, and I just have to do whatever it takes to get that done. And we're gonna try to get you some grant money out of that too, and that takes a little more time. So the sewage one will be included in the project cost, will be paid out of the bond issue proceeds, and the water one will not be able to be paid out of the bond issue proceeds, but would be a bill that you'd have to pay at some point. So there are 3 copies of each if you have any interest in signing those. It doesn't have to happen today, but it has to happen sometime because I got enough that you want me to do what you want me to do. So
Need a motion for these, right?
That's right.
Anybody have any questions for Steve?
Separate motions?
Yes. If you guys are gonna sign them both today.
I make a motion to engage for financial advisory and municipal advisory services. River Rock Associates.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion granted.
And then I think this water study is something we really need to do too, so I would make a motion to engage River Rock to do a water rate study for us.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So you need
We're not supposed to sign that.
all of them signed then?
yeah, that way you can keep one, your attorney can keep one. And I know that's confusing, but I've got a them in there that I got tacked onto that.
All 3 of them need to be signed then?
26th by the time it's all done, so I apologize for
Where's our stamp?
that. Exactly. Where's the stamp when you need it? The other three things that I'm here and available to talk about today, if you want to, one would be the written building policy procedure that your attorneys have reviewed, and this is something that's been kind of ongoing for about 7 years now, and I don't think it's ever been adopted. The benefits of a building policy procedure is that all your procedures that relate to building are on one document, and so it's easily reviewed and easily changed if you want to change the way you're doing things, and it's easy to distribute to new customers, and everything's in one location and it's in writing, so it's no longer word of mouth. I believe your attorneys have reviewed that also, is that right?
I think we talked about this last time, that there's some discrepancies between what's currently on the books, like ordinances that have already been passed, and then everything that was laid out in the building policies and procedures. And I think everyone was in agreement that the best thing to do would be to pass a comprehensive ordinance, just kind of reflecting what was in the policies and procedures rather than going back through the ordinances piecemeal, piece by piece.
Yeah, I read through the existing ordinances yesterday, and I think you ticked most of the boxes that are in there, because he covers even like rate, adjustments, and I mean he covered a lot in there. I'm wondering if we could just rescind everything except for the rates out of our current billing policy, and then
We could do that if we wanted
adopt
to.
that one.
I think where we were at was that I looked through what needed to be changed with the old ordinances and then was waiting on feedback
Sure.
from you all. So I'm definitely able to draft something that would be a comprehensive ordinance once
would-
everyone is good with the billing policy.
I guess we would just need to make sure the new one didn't miss anything that
Okay.
we would otherwise be rescinding.
Right.
Yes.
And it would,
Yeah.
you're right, Marie, it would have the effect of repealing all the other ones. It would have that language in there.
Aside from rates and charges, fees. So I
Sounds
can do
good.
that. I can look back over that, make sure there isn't anything missing, and that would repeal the ordinances aside from the rates.
Yeah, I could have overlooked something when I was looking through there, but it looked like he got most of what we already had.
I think so.
The other thing I recommend is just that this is your one good opportunity to make those building policies, procedures the way you want them. So that
Yeah.
things you haven't been doing them maybe in the past, you said, boy, it'd be nice if you do it this way. This is the time to do that. So if you want to look through that building policy one last time, Jennifer looked through it one last time and say, hey, it'd be nicer to do it this way than another way, and we can incorporate that in here, and you can get your new spiffy building policies, procedures just the way you want them going forward.
Has everybody else read the one that he made up? Take a look at it. It's,
You should have had it, I think it should have been in last.
Oh,
Got a copy? Just give you another.
Last.
That's
Okay.
there.
Yes, sir.
I'm always glad to give paper out. Anybody else like an additional copy?
And if it's easier to read, Jennifer can email it to you, you can see all our comments and stuff in there.
So I will be working on that, and then, like he said, if there's any thoughts of how to make things run more efficiently or any changes we want to make now, it'd be a good time to do it while we're just doing a big comprehensive ordinance.
I guess I did have some questions when I was going through it. I don't know if those are worth addressing here or in another forum. I mean, things like trash, how do we deal with the hydrant rental, how do we deal with the, and then a couple of the dates I was confused on too.
If you want to send those out as comments, we
Okay.
can deal with them online, and then we can get a resolution online, having copy everybody in this group, and then we can, once there's consensus, we can put that information together in the final format, and at your next meeting, maybe you can decide how you want to move forward.
We can talk about it and decide.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Any further questions?
The next item on my list was, when I was here last, we talked about availability fees. An availability fee is a fee that affects new customers and customers who are expanding their customers who expand their service. For example, I always like to use the example of a hotel or motel. If they build another wing on and they're using more of your system, and they should get an increase in what's called an availability fee. Availability fee is a buy-in into the cost of your system on the costs that are being paid for by the current customers, so that new customers that come in don't get essentially a free ride, but buy into the system and are put on an equal footing economically on a cost basis as the existing customers. I distributed and have additional copies today of what I call the availability fee program. Essentially what that is it comes up with a rate, and that rate is for what they call EDU. One residential household is an EDU. That's what those things look like. And your attorneys have written ordinances that would allow the adoption of that. As I understand the adoption system, or anything with a rate of charge, and your attorneys are going to correct me, there has to be an ordinance that has to be introduced, it has to be advertised, there has to be a public hearing, and after the public hearing, the ordinances can be adopted. Is that essentially correct?
Yes.
So, the first item in there is to determine what you want the rate to be. And with an availability fee, I've identified several levels, but I come up with what is, as I understand, to be the maximum that can be charged, and then we show different rates after that. And so the maximum on wastewater is $12,000 per EDU, which seems a little bit high. The maximum for water is $1,700, and it can go down to whatever you want it to be lower than that. So this would be something that a new customer that would want service for your system, say a new person's going to build a house, then each house would have an availability fee. They would pay for water, an availability fee they would pay for wastewater at the rate that you would approve. For example, you could have a $2,000 wastewater fee and a $800 water fee, and that's well within the limits of the maximum it's calculated. You can go all the way up to an $12,000 fee for wastewater, or a $1,700 fee for water. So you've got a wide range there in what you can do. One consideration I always ask you to think about is that you don't want the availability fee to be something that would be a huge disincentive for people coming in to your house. You want your town. You want them to come in. You just want them to pay a little money when they do. So I have not put together yet, but I can for your next meeting a listing of availability fees in Hamilton County. If you'd like to see that kind of thing. Yeah. So you know what everybody else is charging. Certainly surrounding communities. And if there's any other communities outside of Hamilton County you'd like to see what their availability fees are, whether you think there's a community that's within 10 or 12 miles that competes with you for residences, we can get that to you. You just have to tell me if there's another community outside of Hamilton County you'd like to be included in that list of availability fees. Is there anything anybody can think of?
Even though our costs have gone up, so you guys know, we haven't had an increase for like 20 years.
What are the fees now?
Well, it's technically 1,000 and 1,000.
Okay.
And so what I drafted was just a template, because clearly, like you're saying, you guys haven't agreed on anything, so this is just what it would look like. Ignore if there's numbers in there. Like he said, that would be something for you all to decide on, but it's just something that we drafted up so you all would see how it would work. And then he explained the process pretty well about we'd have to read it, since it is changing a rate and a charge, we would have to have a public hearing on it before we actually adopt it. So those are just examples for you all to see how it would work.
Any questions on that or the numbers? I want to see the surrounding communities' fees. But other than that, is there any addition that you'd like to see?
So do we need a motion on the table it? Or-
Not if you all are not, if
Everybody
we're
in
just
agreement
still
to that? Yeah.
not agreeing on a rate or any ordinance or anything. It can just be something that continues to be discussed.
Just so you don't have to do too much digging, I doubt that we're gonna compete too much with like Carmel or Fishers.
Yeah.
But like Noblesville, Westfield, one up to us maybe.
Okay.
It's a sister Arcadia.
Perfect.
Could be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I'll probably email that out to you prior to the next meeting, so you'll have that, and you can consider it during the month before your next meeting, so
Excellent.
I'll come up with an idea of what you'd like to do. The only other item that was in my list that I could talk to you about would be, if you have any questions on the process for the sewer project. We're looking at state revolving loan financing, and we hired a firm to be your bond counsel. They're working on what's called the bond ordinance. The bond ordinance is the authorizing document to issue the debt. That has to be reviewed by the state revolving loan fund. As I understood it, it's in that review process now. Once it's through that review process, it'll come back to your attorneys to review and to be presented to you, and your attorneys would advise you on what to do with it after that. That should be available for your attorneys to give you some advice on at the next meeting. The process for the state revolving loan fund is that they have a funding cycle that starts on July 1st. We would have to have all our applicable documentation into them to be rated and scored to be eligible for that July 1st program by around June 1st to June 15th. At the last meeting, you authorized Triad to produce and prepare the application for the state revolving loan fund. It's about 6 pages. Doesn't obligate you to anything, but it gets you started on their list. As I understand, they're in the process of doing that. And then I also understand that they believe they need to get the televising and the smoke testing done in order to determine what their recommendation should be.
Cleaning televising, we've done our smoke testing.
Clean televising, and that you've authorized them to get quotes and bids for that, and they're in the process of doing that. So maybe by your next meeting, there'll be more progress that's moving on with that.
Is there anything else that we can do now? I don't. I think everybody's heard me say it. Pretty adamant that we need to move forward with this however we can. We're just kind of waiting, I guess, till our next meeting, or is there anything else that can be done at this point?
Not that I know of. You need 3 things to get scored to be able to be evaluated by July 1st in the state revolving loan fund program. The first is their 6-page application, which Trad's working on now, and we'll get in, give them a preliminary notice. You'll get put on a project priority list as a unscored applicant, which won't be any good other than let the SRF know that you're gonna come in. The next 2 items are a little more complicated. One is the preliminary engineering report, and Trad will produce that after they get the results of your cleaning and your televising. And then the third document is the environmental report, and that is an environmental assessment, an impact statement that has to go out to environmental agencies to see if there's going to be any environmental impact of the work you're going to do. And as I understand it, everything you're talking about doing is with the collection system, what's called previously disturbed ground. And if it's under previously disturbed ground, you get what's called a categorical exclusion from having to go through that ER, and things can happen much quicker. And that's really our only hope of getting this in before July 1st, is because you don't have to worry about the environmental impact of that. As I talk about the July 1st funding program, why I like to push for July 1st is that The SRF gets its funding award in June, and they get a combination of loan and grant money that they can give out as loan and grant money. And I'm gonna work as hard as I can to try to get you grant money. And that's very important then to be in to the program by July 1st, because they try to get rid of all their grant money as soon as they can, so they can tell the federal government we need more. And so they don't hold much in reserve, and if we come in after July 1st, there's a chance until they run out of loan funding, which they do every year, that we can still get in under the loan program, but our opportunities for grant funding are limited. I'm gonna try to pitch a little proposal to the SRF that we're gonna add your sewage fee and your stormwater fee together to show a total sanitary and stormwater fee to get you closer to that buy-down level for the SRF to try to get you in that grant range. And I'm confident I can get that into the conversation. I've had one community that allowed that to before. I'd like you to be the second community. So I'm gonna push it hard, and we'll see what we can do. I just want you to know I'm working hard for you, trying to get as much free money as we can get, and we'll just find out how well we do.
And I have reviewed the bond council's engagement letter. I sent it on. We don't need to make a motion or anything on it because it was exactly what was reflected in their bid. So that looks good. It's ready for approval. I know they're already working on it after you guys selected them at the last meeting. So.
Thank you, Kim.
Has that been signed then? Has that engagement letter been signed or not?
I have signed it on, send it on to you all. Has it been signed on your
I got
end?
it right here.
Okay.
Is that something they should or should not do?
Yes, it's exactly what you all accepted with the cap, I think of 12 grand, so everything looked fine. Hourly, yeah, hourly. Almost the bid seemed a little iffy on whether it was hourly or just a flat fee, but it's hourly with the cap, so it's good.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
I know, well, it wasn't very clear until I read the engagement letter, so.
I'm glad you read that.
Yes. Look, I'm doing my job. What I'm here for.
I will say that's a very low bid. So thank you.
It's,
Fabulously low.
yes, that's great. And the hourly, it's not even a flat fee, so yeah, it's good. And I will get that on to
Just him.
folks. Good.
Thank you.
Any questions about the SRF program, the funding process? To answer your question, I don't think there is anything at this point that we could do. You've given authorization for the, for Triad to do the application, and that's in process, and it'll certainly be done before your next meeting. And then we're just waiting for those other two documents, and they have to go through the process. You know, from Triad's side, they want to make sure they're giving you the best recommendation for the work that needs to be done. You don't want to spend money for work that doesn't need to be done, so they want to make sure they do the evaluation so they can give you the best recommendation, which makes perfect sense. It just, I'm pushing on the other side to try to get you free money, seeing others. Two things working against each other, actually. Triad's done this before, they know the deadlines, and they'll do the best.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Anything else for me?
Any other questions for Steve?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Steve, appreciate it.
Do you have anything for me? I'm gonna leave.
No, you can go, Andy.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna talk about our annexation. I guess, Caitlin, are you gonna handle that?
Yeah, so I sent something out that's a little more involved, but I'll just kind of talk about the overview and the two different types we'll be looking at. So super voluntary annexation is when the town gets a petition that's signed by all of the landowners in the area that would be annexed. So that's why it's important that we know parcel numbers and we know who all's going to be in the area. As of right now, it seems like it's just the Indiana Marine Company. So if it's just them, it would be super voluntary if they signed a petition and then statutorily it's required to be set out a certain way, the petition's required to say certain things. So if we had that, it'd be a super voluntary annexation, and it's a lot less expensive and it's a lot less time consuming. You would still have a public hearing after the petition is filed. Then you would adopt the annexation ordinance, and there's time constraints, like you can't do it X days after, X days before, but I laid all of that out. Afterwards, you publish the ordinance, and you still have to appoint an advisory board that would advise you guys on everything that comes along with annexation, like services out to that area is one thing I can think of. So you'd still need to do that.
That's part of the reason why we wanna solicit.
That's
this
what I
annexation,
thought,
is because
because-
we will be providing those
Okay.
services either way.
And has that already been?
It's already been established.
It's already,
We've
okay,
already got plans in, and
that makes
I mean,
sense. So when did Indiana Marine purchase the area?
I'm not sure, it's been in the last 2 years,
Okay.
I'd say.
Alright, so if it is just them out there, if that's just the area that we annex, then it would probably be more likely that we could do a super voluntary annexation since they're already accepting services.
Right.
No remonstrances may be filed, which are, okay, say you're annexing a large area that 10 different people live in. Some of those people may not like it and they can file remonstrances. It sets off a whole process of hearings and there's appeals. So in this case, everybody's already agreeing, no remonstrances. That cuts down on the time and expense. I will go through the voluntary procedure, which...
One other thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
so preparing the petition, for super voluntary, they prepare the petition. We would do that for them and get information, because we want to make sure it's right, and we can work with whoever they have, whoever they would do it. The other kind of interesting issue is the year before a census year, like this is, because the census is next year, you cannot have an annexation take effect. So it would take effect January 1, 2020.
Not even for a non-residential?
That is a weird rule, but any annexation cannot take effect the year before December the census.
You can
Of
finalize all
course,
the
the-
paper,
You
right?
Yes,
can
you
get
can
all
do
five of
everything.
Just the effective date will be
Right.
January 1, 2020. The date at which you have to provide services, you have to meet with what the petition requests, is January 1, 2020.
It's weird, but it's.
And that's going to apply to either type that I'm talking
Right.
about. So, like he said, we can still work on everything if you decide to go that route, but it won't take effect this year. So, say we want to annex an area that there's more than one property owner, and we don't get the petition signed by everybody, then we would first, this is one thing that's different, you have to conduct an outreach program, and that is pretty time consuming. It's 6 different meetings. And then there's a lot in there in the statute about sending notice out to everybody that owns property in the area, publishing notice as well.
And no meeting can be within a certain amount of days from the other one.
Yes, it's
Very
a long
time-consuming.
process, expensive and lengthy generally.
60 days.
Yeah.
There also has to be a written fiscal plan, which there has to be a fiscal plan for both types. But with this one, I believe it has to be established beforehand. There has to be another public hearing. There's lots of time limits with this one as well. You have to give written notice to all the landowners of the public hearing. You have to publish the notice. Once again, after all of that's done, you adopt the ordinance. Then you have to give notice of the remonstrance process, because in this type of annexation, people can remonstrate, say they don't agree with it. You'll publish the ordinance, given there's no remonstrances, then the ordinance will take effect at least 90 days after publication and filing. Once again, you need to appoint the advisory board that will talk about the things that the annexation would affect, like capital services, fire and police departments going out there. So the main differences are the length of time, the expense, and the outreach program, which sounds simple but involves many different meetings, many different notices, and the remonstrance process, because with super voluntary we don't have that. With voluntary, people can remonstrate and then that becomes expensive and lengthy. So I guess the next step is to really get in there if you all are serious about it and make sure, see who all the property owners are, and I would think to see their thoughts on it, because if it's only one person and only one company and they agree, then like he said, we could work with whoever they have out there.
Draft whatever the
petition
is and have them see if they'll sign it.
If that's the way it was going to be, it wouldn't be. I mean, aside from not taking effect this year, then it wouldn't be as lengthy and
Sure.
problematic as voluntary.
It abuts town property
Yes.
already, so.
Yes, and we're running utilities to them. so,
Right.
Yeah.
if someone would refuse to, would want to reject the annexation, do they have to have a reasonable reason? Or, I mean, you know, somebody thinks, well, maybe this is gonna reduce my property value, for example, or something.
With the voluntary, they can remonstrate for any reason.
Okay, so there's,
You can accept or reject the remonstrance, and they might have to file a lawsuit, and it gets really complicated.
so they could just be hardcore stubborn if they want to
Yeah.
be.
But for super voluntary, they don't have that option. There's no remonstrance. Because the only person who's affected has already asked you, that's what the petition is. The only person that's gonna be affected by it has already asked you to be annexed into the town.
I understand.
So there's no remonstrance process. So I would ask them to confirm, whatever way they have, through deed or whatever, that they in fact own that property. We can help them with the petition, and then follow the process if you guys want to take that route. But you can appoint a point person for that, whether it's Murray or somebody else. And you can work with Caitlin, whoever the other party for the arena is, to get that accomplished. Now, like Caitlin said, that's not nearly as expensive. It's just a matter of if everything goes smoothly, if the negotiations go smoothly, do a fiscal impact statement, you put the petition together, and if everybody agrees, great. It won't cost you all that much money.
So you need specific information from them in order to draft this?
Yes. We would need to make sure that they're the only people we need to talk to.
Sure, and they are.
And then if so, we can start working with them. The petition is pretty simple, at least I have prepared one. It's not too intricate, but we would need to work with them on it. Make sure everything's done right.
I guess I'll see if I can find out some specific information.
That'd be great.
I'll try to get that together.
Sounds good. And did she give you all did you print out what I provided that's more in depth? If you all have any more questions about it, just let me know. That should go over most of the procedures.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Any more questions? We'll move on to new business. And we've talked to Mr. Booker. How about Keisha Burdine gazebo wedding?
Hi, I'm Keisha. This is my fiance Nathan. I met him like a year ago on our wedding date, so will be our anniversary, and we met and he showed me to this town and I fell in love with it just as much as I fell in love with him. So we now live in Indianapolis, but are soon to come back here and live. So we want to do our wedding at the gazebo. And so we've called to rent out the hall or the shelter house for our reception, and there'll be about 75 to possibly 100 people. And so I'm hoping you guys are okay with that.
Well, I have no problem
Use
with
the
it.
gazebo? Yeah, there's no issue there. Do you have a date?
June 9th. I was hoping you'd say that because the invitations are already printed out. But she wasn't sure.
Ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, well, she wasn't sure about it, but we did a little asking about the shelter house like probably 3 months ago when he moved in with me.
Yeah.
So our plan is to come back here and make moves on the town.
That's a Sunday.
I would, my only concerns was how the train would affect, when's their rail fest? When do they have?
I haven't heard, so I don't know.
Okay, so if we take these people on at this date, do we cancel their rail fest if they want it at that day too?
They've already rented the shelter house.
These people have?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they come to set up a rail fest, we have to sell it. It's a
Set it up
different
somewhere
date.
else.
different date, okay.
Well, it's on a Sunday, so that's good news.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
most
is a
people
Sunday.
don't want to do anything on
Even
Sunday.
if they are running, I'm
so.
sure we can coordinate
don't
a
care
window
about
of
the train
time.
coming.
Okay,
where we don't have to
okay,
do more.
all right, well, I mean, just,
They may want to sell you tickets.
Be here really early.
6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. I'll just rough it off now.
Now, do we need
Alright.
do we need approval for the use of the gazebo, or is that?
Is it part of the shelter house or is
I
it
don't
just
know
town
whether-
Part of the
property?
park.
It's just
Our
town
property in the
property.
park.
Yeah.
So the only thing, we have the event there, some sort of insurance coverage.
Okay.
A sufficient amount, I don't know what that would be off the top of my head, but to cover anything that might happen, that'd be my.
Well,
I mean,
we're
they're
not
not-
decorating the gazebo. or
Yeah, you're not
anything.
decorating,
We're
you're not
just
setting